England have been gracious enough hosts to ensure that the World Cup remains interesting and alive at their own expense. It's now down to Pakistan to make sure that continues to happen as they take on New Zealand in a massive game for them at Edgbaston in just over half an hour from now. Building up to that game on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019. I'm Ronak Kapoor in studio with Murli Karthik and Michael Hussey, who's moved to second slip.
Yep.
Very happy after his...
Always been a second slip of my life, and suddenly Mr. Huss decides that he's the captain and I need to come to first slip. Very close to the wicketkeeper, Ronak Kapoor.
Oh, thank you. You inflated. I thought I was just someone running on the pitch. But yeah,
MSD, Ronak Kapoor.
No. Big game actually today. New Zealand have almost confirmed a playoff spot, a semi-final spot. But they have three tough fixtures ahead of them. There's England and Australia to come. But today, Pakistan, with plenty to play for, would be a good fixture, Huss.
Oh, it's going to be brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it. We've got New Zealand, who just seem like this ultra-consistent, well-oiled machine. Every player knows his role in the team. They just come in and just do their job. And then you've got Pakistan. You don't know what's going to turn up on any given day. They're mercurial on their best day, and they're pretty disappointing on their worst day. So what are we going to get today? Yeah. We have to see the best of Pakistan today because they have to win to give themselves a chance to make those semi-finals.
Every player knows their role seems to just be make sure Kane Williamson doesn't get run out. And that should solve 9 out of 10 problems.
Yeah.
It seems like though there's a lot of onus on Kane Williamson. And you were just telling me his last 10 scores in England before we went on air.
Oh, he's got an incredible record in one-day internationals. I think he's just been so consistent. His last 2 scores have been over 100. He's the linchpin, obviously, for New Zealand. He's the key wicket that Pakistan have to get today. That's the little concern for me, from a New Zealand point of view, is they're so reliant on Kane Williamson with the bat. What happens in the day that he misses out? Okay, yes, there's some other good players in there that have done okay. Ross Taylor's got a score under his belt. Martin Guptill, just the 1 score. De Grandhomme played a good knock against South Africa, but they need to be playing more consistently for New Zealand, I think, to be a real force and a real threat to win this comp.
The conversation around Pakistan, Karthik, seems to change drastically after every performance. Now they've had a good one against South Africa the other day at Lord's. So what are we expecting? Can they actually stitch 2 together?
Yeah, they can. The reason being that that was something very nice which Mitchell Santner said, that when they're hot, they're really hot. And that's something which we can expect from them. And funnily, yesterday our man Anubhav was putting together all this similarity or an uncanny similarity between 1992 was it, and 2019.
I'll tell you the original
and I think
the
seventh game was also against New Zealand, which they won.
Correct. So the original author of that will join us in just a bit. And
yeah, so
we have to build it up because this is the
that
greatest.
is something which I'm really looking forward to. Yeah. And again, look, I've always enjoyed Pakistan, the way they've played, and there's something so invigorating about them. It's like sometimes, as Huss said, you feel, oh, what, can they actually play like that? And then you see them, oh, they play like that. So it's that kind of extremes and polarities which you get with them. And it's amazing. It's great. Yeah. That is something which we've always seen. It's not the first time we're going to get it. It's just that in different varying degrees.
Okay. Now, just if you're just tuning in, we have some information from you. Unfortunately, the weather at Edgbaston means that we have a delayed start. We have an inspection coming up at 10:30 local time, which is the original start of the game. That's 3 o'clock in India, and set your clocks accordingly wherever you're joining us from. But we will keep you posted with the very latest. We will still have the latest from Edgbaston, and the good news is that it's not raining at the moment. In fact, the covers were looking to come off, but a damp outfield seems to have delayed the toss. We'll come to that in just a bit, but the record as far as New Zealand and Pakistan go in World Cups, this is a team that Pakistan enjoy playing actually. 6 wins out of 8, and the only 2 defeats happen to be the first and last fixture in 1983, which was at Edgbaston, and then in 2011, where both Misbah Ulaq and Dan Vittori most graciously participated. Let's go to Dan Vittori. He was captain of New Zealand that day. He remembers that fine game that put Shoaib Akhtar's career to bed. He's with us right now, Dan, and there are still some questions around the New Zealand team, but they've pretty much got their semi-final spot, surely?
I hope it goes better than that game for me. I walked off the park after about 10 overs with a sore knee, which seemed to be a recurring theme in the back end of my career. Look, I think they are a confident team. I think Huss and Karthik nailed it, that they're a consistent team and they really understand the way they want to play. And I suppose now the test in this game against a very good Pakistan team, and then the 2 games coming up against Australia and England will really define where they are at the tournament. Yep. They should be feeling good because they've played such good cricket. And I think in tournament format, you don't worry about the close victories because all you care about is taking a win. And I think every time you play well and take that win with performers who have done it consistently means that there's another chance for a player like the likes of Guptill or Latham to come into form. So I think the wins take care of the loss of form for a couple of players, and I think those sorts of players still have their opportunity to come out and do well, and I think that's the attitude that the New Zealand team will be taking at the moment. We're playing some good cricket. We haven't all fired, but we know the more opportunities we have, the likes of those good players will come to the fore.
This is a very interesting point that Dan makes, that if you keep coming out on the right side of a close game, which New Zealand have done, 3 times now, against South Africa, against the West Indies, against Bangladesh, then even those areas of concern, you can almost afford those players extra opportunities. Otherwise, if you end up on the other side, then all hell breaks loose. You start questioning people, chopping and changing, which is something that's happened to Pakistan.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. I think New Zealand are the only team to have an unchanged team throughout the World Cup,
right.
which I think it sends a great message to the players that we're backing you, we trust you, but it also is great for the players just to know what their role is, just to sort of hone in and just focus on that. If there's players coming and going, you're not sure about your place in the team, or you might just play a bit selfishly. So I think New Zealand are well placed, and you're right. You just take the wins at this stage. You just got to do enough just to get into the semi-finals, and then it's almost a whole brand new competition once you get there.
On the other side, Pakistan have tried all but one of their 15-member squad in this World Cup, and Misbah has been calling for that one to actually be included for the last 4 games. But we don't know if Mohammad Hasnain will indeed get a game today or not. But Misbah, good to have you as well. And how much will yesterday's result just inspire Pakistan a bit more? I think they would have liked to see England drop the points, and in some ways it can be in their own hands. If they manage to win all the remaining games, they probably have the best possible chance for a semi-final spot.
Yeah, I think it's a big encouragement for Pakistan team, especially for today's game, that Australia just did favour to them, and Australia favoured to them in 1992 when they won against West Indies, and from there on Pakistan got a hope, and then they just go on to win all matches and qualified for the semi-finals. So I think that's the big encouragement for the Pakistan team, but it's not going to be easy for them. New Zealand really playing well. They're not under pressure at the moment because they've been already almost qualified for the semi-finals. So the pressure will be on Pakistan, and now it's the matter of how we go and deal that pressure. Obviously, if you just see that New Zealand haven't played against the top teams at the moment in the world, they still to play against Australia, they still play, they missed the game against India, and they haven't played against England. So it's a big test for them also if they want to just go further in this World Cup, and if they want to win this World Cup. Now these are the matches where they're gonna be really tested, and it's a big chance for Pakistan now. They're back in the tournament, so today it's a do and die situation for Pakistan. And a good thing about Pakistan is that they finally just managed to actually know which is their best 11. Only one thing they can change, which I've been already saying, that they can make one change in their bowling lineup if they can bring Hasnain instead of Shaheen. But if they go with the same team even, I think they've been confident because they played really well in the last game, and if they can improve their fielding a little bit and bowling a little bit more, they have a very good chance. And New Zealand, despite the innings from Williamson, their batting lineup is still not firing. So if they're under pressure, if they lose a couple of wickets, including Williamson at the top, they will be under huge pressure after that, and Pakistan will be definitely looking to put them under pressure by taking early wickets.
All right, we'll find out once that toss does come our way, but Misbah continues to make the references to 1992. That seems to be the theme now, and given that was initially started by Osman Samiuddin, senior editor, ESPN Cricinfo, and the best thing to come out of Pakistan cricket since Fawad Alam, and he's there standing alongside Mel Farrell, who's made the trip from Lords to Edgbaston, and the good thing is they're not under umbrellas. So Mel, take it away. What have you got for us?
Well, do you know what? It's building up atmosphere here already, and you might hear it at some point. There are lots of Pakistani fans with drums behind us, and I can actually sense that the primal beats of those drums are stirring the blood of Osman Samuddin and the memories of 1992. Should be wearing Doc Martens and flannel shirts. Is it 1992, Oz?
Well, it's not, but we'll get to that in a second. This started off, it's quite funny, this started off well before this tournament began, when some die-hard Pakistani fans started pointing out the fact that it's going to be the same format as 1992, and then there's going to be 2 white balls used, one at each end, which they had in 1992, and then people waited for the West Indies result, and Pakistan lost that game like they did in 92, their opening game, and then it just took off, and it's become its own thing from there. The funny thing is that, everyone's been talking about it a lot, all fans, even some analysts have been talking about it, but yesterday Azhar Mahmood was asked about it at the press conference, and he said, no, this is not 92, this is Australia 99. So there you have it. It's not Pakistan 92, it's Australia 99.
Is that good?
Well, they won the World Cup, and Pakistan did, so it's not a bad thing, is it?
Well, now, hearing Misbah there as well, talking about Hasnain. Now, a bit of a story there. Has he been training with the team? What's been happening with him?
I don't know. We were talking to the team yesterday, watching them train. I would be surprised if they played him. I would think the way they've gone in this tournament, where they've changed their team pretty much every game, and they've made a couple of changes every game, I would think that after that win, they would want to keep as much of the same 11 as possible. So unless Shaheen is feeling something, or he's not feeling great, or they're really losing confidence in him, I'd be surprised that they would throw in Mohammad Hasnain, who, is fairly untested still at this stage of a tournament.
Now, what about on the New Zealand side? Any concerns around the camp about Kane Williamson and the overrate issue?
It was a story for sure when that happened, because it just doesn't happen to New Zealand often. But I think that is the key, that because it doesn't happen to them often, I wouldn't expect that to be an issue. I mean, this was the first overrate offence, I think, since 2017 for New Zealand. So I would doubt that it would happen again. They're fairly tight with these things, unless, of course, we get a close game. But in that way, even Sarfraz is on a penalty. He's been fined once, so he'd be under the scanner as well, as much as Kane.
Now, you've seen Pakistan prepare many times for very important games. You are as much of an expert as anyone, which means you know absolutely nothing. But what do you think about their preparation for this one?
Yesterday it was raining and they were in the indoor nets all day pretty much. And I don't think the intention was they had an optional training session. But I think, with Pakistan always it's the mood in the camp. And I think after India and the win over South Africa, they feel vindicated, and they've shown a lot of people that they're not as bad as that India loss suggested. And the dangerous thing, I would think, is that they're feeling pretty angry about the kind of press and the kind of abuse they've gotten from the fans and stuff. And I think that is something that is driving them on. At every stage, they've pointed out the fact that, people have had a go at them and it's been unfair. And, Mickey Arthur said a few things that he maybe shouldn't have said. Azhar Mahmood yesterday as well. And I think the fact that they are hurt and they are angry, that probably more than, anything else would be an indicator of how they might go.
Wow. And New Zealand, I imagine it's just been all
completely the opposite.
Easy, yes.
Completely the opposite. They're fairly chilled out, I would think. There was a little bit of talk about whether they might have a think about Matt Henry, given how he went in that, and it was just 1 over against Brathwaite, But I think New Zealand being New Zealand, I don't think they would drop him or change that lineup on the basis of 1 over going wrong in that game against the West Indies. And I think they would bank the fact that, pace bowling against Pakistan will go well.
Yeah, well, I also would like to point out Mood in the Camp is going to be the name of my biography, so it's good to know that we've got Mood in the Camp. The mood here in the sky and in the weather department, well, I can tell you there's been 1.2 inches of rain over the past 24 hours. It's not raining at the moment. It's been a little bit of mizzle about, but it's actually quite dry now. I think the surface looks a little bit greasy, but should be okay. It just depends possibly on whether or not they want to see some drying weather happen. If that's what they want to see, I'm not sure that they're going to get it.
All right, brilliant. Many thanks to Mel Farrell and Osman Samiuddin. We continue to hear from them once we hear more from Edgbaston. The good news is that the covers are indeed on their way out, so that inspection should be a formality, and we should have some cricket very soon. Let me quickly go back to Dan Vittori. I don't remember the last time a New Zealand captain got fined for a slow overrate and was on threat or on notice for another offence that would lead to a suspension. What's going on, Dan Vittori?
I think Brendan McCallum got done during the Brisbane Heat game. Does that count? He got suspended for a match. Look, I think it's all down to Brathwaite. He put them under so much pressure at the back end of that game that they actually spent a considerable amount of time trying to plan for him. And I think when the game was going so well and they were breezing through it, they let Brathwaite get away. And then when it all turned a bit pear-shaped at the end, they actually took their time and tried to plan a little bit more. And I suppose that led to the slow over rate. And I don't think they'll mind about that either. I think they'll rectify it in this game. They'll be aware of it, and they'll make it. They'll make a conscious effort not to let it happen again. And I think someone pointed out that most captains are on this most of the time, and it's New Zealand's turn this time round. But I'd be very surprised if Kane put himself in the situation where he was fined or missed the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand it when the game's going that close, that there'll be a little more time. But it's nice of David Boone to just slap a little fine on Kane Williamson. It's just the Aussie match referees, I think, that do this. If it happened at Brisbane Heat to Brendan McCullum as well.
Oh, come on, I'm not
All right,
reading
fine,
into that too much. No.
Don't grace that with a response. Let's just go to the social corner, shall we? Where Anubhav is waiting patiently. All yours.
Thank you so much, Rana. Given the iconic encounter that England v Australia is, it still seems to be grabbing all the headlines in the world of social media. We'll kick things off with Mitch McLennigan, who shares a screenshot of a group chat involving Ben Cutting, Jason Behrendorff, and him. And this was Ben Cutting yesterday telling Jason Behrendorff before the encounter that, Behrendorff, if you don't get a five for today, I'm keeping your Omega, referring to Behrendorff's IPL winning watch that Ben Cutting had collected on Behrendorff's behalf.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. You get watches if you win the IPL?
No, both teams actually. If you make the IPL final, then both teams and support staff get a watch. Get
And support staff?
Yes.
How many have you got?
I've got one as well.
You got one?
I've got two, yeah.
That's better.
Was it an Omega?
Yeah. Okay. They're very nice watches.
All right, carry on.
Brilliant. And then Jason Behrendorff telling Ben Cutting after the encounter, phew, thanks mate, top stuff there. Hashtag group chat on point, as McLennigan says. Up next, we've got Queensland Police with a brilliant bit of banter saying the tears of English cricket fans have made driving conditions tricky this morning. Drive safe, Brisbane. I wonder how turbulent it must be in England right now, if that's the situation in Australia.
Queensland Police has a sense of humour. Is that the funniest part of Australia?
Well, if you ask Kevin Peterson, it's the worst place in Australia. He hates going to Queensland, Brisbane and all that sort of stuff. But no, it's a good little sledge that. I like that.
That's very good. Yeah, excellent sledge. Carry on, Anubhav.
Superb. Next, we've got the #1 female tennis player in the world, Ash Barty, who joined the Aussie party yesterday as she's seen here celebrating with the Aussie boys after the game at Lord's in the changing room. And we'll wrap things up with a picture of Damian Lewis exchanging pleasantries with Gareth Southgate. Now, it didn't quite come home for Gareth Southgate's men. Let's see if the cricket team can finally do justice to hashtag it's coming home.
Oh my word, it's just not going to end. Well, Murali Karthik has a lot of emotion about this. It's coming home.
I just find it so funny. Just one win and they start going, it's coming home.
But it's almost like they understand that the caricature is. It's almost like they go on with the
What
joke.
came home? Please tell me, what came home from the Football World Cup? British Airways carrying the English team. That's all that came home. Over here, they don't even have to go anywhere.
Okay, but what is the mood any better in the Pakistan camp though, Misbah? We spoke of the toxic environment of social media and fans and abuse that had gone towards Sarfraz ahead of the South Africa game. After that performance and putting together such an impressive win against South Africa, have things gotten better back in Pakistan? Is there more optimism now suddenly?
I think it's better for Pakistan because once you've been just treated like that, obviously you just get motivation and you are ready to just face it and give it back by performing. And that's the way normally Pakistan team lives. And I thought not that bad, and we can still turn the table around. So I thought that was a wake-up call for Pakistan, and obviously after the game against India, now the feeling that we have to go all out because before that Indian game, we are very much into if and buts. We were not sure who to play, whether we just need to play our senior player, whether we need to go to a younger player or a player who's in form, which is our best bowling lineup. Now they are, I think, only thinking about what is our best team, with which team we can win these games, and they are focused because of all the criticism and what's been happening, and they're there to show the world, show these fans and whoever is criticizing them. That's, I think, something Pakistan team was missing just from the start of the World Cup, because they weren't sure. They were just in between somewhere. But now this Pakistan team is better than what we started actually in this World Cup. And I personally think that now we can just see that they can beat top teams while they're feeling like that.
All right, well, we're hoping that we do get some cricket very soon to see what sort of mood the Pakistan camp is in. Should be a good game once we get there. Time for a short break. We'll be back with more on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day.
Cricket forever remembers a few men for their man-on-the-moon moments. But Shoaib Akhtar's feat is a tad more special for having come on the biggest stage. Akhtar became the first bowler in history to break the 100-mile barrier in a World Cup match. But let's also credit England's Nick Knight for not only spotting that missile, but also dealing with it without losing his wicket or his toes.
Well, we're building up to New Zealand v Pakistan, which unfortunately is delayed just by a little bit. The covers have thankfully come off in Birmingham. There is a little bit of weather around, but the forecast is for a little to no rain, which is a good thing. So hopefully that inspection, which will be in just over 15 minutes from now, is one that will confirm a start time. And with the way things have gone and the playing conditions that are adhered to in the World Cup, you'd think that there wouldn't be any overs lost. But since we are still building up to that with Dan Vittori, Ms. Paulak, as well as Murli Karthik and Mike Hussey in studio, let's talk a little bit about Edgbaston. We got a quick look at that surface. Mel Farrell says it looked a bit greasy. And from the evidence of the last game at Birmingham, the only game this tournament so far has, the New Zealand-South Africa game, if there is something in it, it usually makes for a better contest when the bowlers have just a little something in it.
That's probably been my favourite game of the World Cup so far. New Zealand versus South Africa. Really great contest between bat and ball. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what that pitch is like, but it certainly just did a little bit for the seam bowlers. And I think someone like Trent Bolt will be licking his lips because he's got two left-handers at the top for Pakistan, Imam and Fakhar. And he enjoys bowling to left-handers, and so if he can get some swing and some seam movement, I think he'll trouble them. So that's a key matchup for me.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those openers as well. And between Martin Guptill, Colin Munro, I'm going to get Dan and Misbah in on this as well. But of all the things that look good for New Zealand, this is one thing that an opposition bowling attack would back themselves in. Sheldon Cottrell in the last game. Today it would be in the form of whoever takes the new ball for Pakistan.
Amir Shaheen.
Yeah?
I think so. Yeah, they definitely need some runs, and that is one place where it's funny that we talk about New Zealand and Australia, and we talk about so many problems, but they still managed to get to the semi-finals. And one of the problems which New Zealand has at the moment is runs from the openers.
Yeah.
Yes, they have backed the same 11 to play right through, but there will come a time, because they're going to play the better games now, that they expect runs in the back end of this tournament, because yes, as Has said, Martin Guptill just won one game of substance,
sure.
And Colin Munro definitely needing runs. They did get some really good deliveries in the last game, but having said that, from a team point of view, that is one area where they would want to completely change things around.
Yeah, we're just going to look at Martin Guptill and Colin Munro's numbers this World Cup. And it's been one area of concern. The reason that Kane Williamson's been brilliant is because he's had a lot more batting to do than he would have liked. But that's what we've got. The opening stand against Sri Lanka in a game where New Zealand were well and truly on top in pursuit of a big chase, or rather a little chase. But otherwise, it's not looked good at all, Has.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And the top teams in this competition have generally, when they've got off to good starts, they've been going on to win games. You think of India when Rohit Sharma and Shikhar Dhawan go well. You think of obviously Warner and Finch going well for Australia. When Jason Roy was opening the batting with Bairstow, they were going well. It's very hard to stop. So I think it is one area that New Zealand need to sharpen up on, because they're relying very heavily at the moment on Kane Williamson to score the bulk of the runs, but you can't rely on him all the time. The other one is Latham, that's just been a little bit disappointing so far in this tournament. You know, he's a quality player, plays spin well. He's been such a good little player in that middle order for New Zealand, but he just hasn't fired just yet. So I'd expect him to sort of come good as well as the tournament goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we were almost talking before we went on air, Dan, that Tom Latham could have been someone they could have used up top if they weren't wanting to go with Henry Nicholls. But I know that I actually found it curious that they went for Colin Munro ahead of Henry Nicholls at the start of this World Cup. It does seem like both Guptill and Munro seem to be playing the same sort of gear or the same sort of approach like they do in 2020. It's not quite serving New Zealand though.
Not at this stage, but I wouldn't underestimate the New Zealand openers. I wouldn't underestimate the Pakistan openers either. I think all four of them have performed exceptionally well for their country for an extended period of time. But in New Zealand's case, I think they're used to that style of play from Guptill and Munro. They want them to be aggressive, particularly Munro. I think they understand that on his day he can be destructive, and we see that with, I think, 3 T20 international hundreds. He has a style of play where he wants to go out there and dominate from the get-go. I think Guptill, you could look back to the last World Cup where he slowly built into it, and by the end of it, he was one of the key performers and the key match winners. So I think they have those similar sort of expectations of Guptill, and I think because of the way they play, and also the records that they both have, I think the New Zealand team expects them to perform at some stage, and I think that's a nice feeling to have as a New Zealand team. Even though you haven't performed, we still back you and we still expect it to happen. Particularly Guptill, who 170 odd ODI games, averages over 40. I think he has over 12 one-day hundreds, probably a lot more. They know that he's the sort of player that's going to come good. And in these moments where you're getting into the tough games against Australia, India, hopefully a semi-final, hopefully a final, they will back him the whole way, expecting at some stage in those 4 or 5 games he will have a match-winning performance.
Yeah, I mean, between Guptill and Munro, they actually feature in a list that they wouldn't want to as an ODI opener, which is the most dismissals within 30 runs. So I guess if you're a number 3 or a number 4, you're going to be ready. If you're looking at those numbers, that they're in the top 5. That's not a good sign.
No, not a good stat, but I actually agree with Dan. They're quality players.
Yes.
Okay, they haven't exactly set the world on fire yet, but coming into the business end, New Zealand have still been able to find a way to win. You'd expect your good players to perform when it really matters. So yes, they've been relying on Williamson, but you'd expect some quality performances from these guys, you know, in the run into the semi-finals.
You know, on the other hand, Misbah, if I'm to compare how Pakistan's openers have been this World Cup, they've actually played responsibly at times. They saw that in a few games that Pakistan have done well. They've seen out the new ball, and they look good. They look in good touch. and then that big score just doesn't come. The ones that Australia and India and even New Zealand with Williamson have been putting up, the big 100 doesn't seem to be coming. If you just look at the Pakistani batting, they're still waiting for the first 100 of this World Cup. But what's the key to just making that big innings come? That's the only thing perhaps that's eluding Fakhar, Imam and Babar Azam.
Yeah, that is very important. I mean, if you look at New Zealand and Pakistan, specifically in this game, it will be a big contest between the two, who starts well with the ball and with the bat. And obviously, one side, Amir will be testing Munro and Guptill, and from other side, Trent Boult will be testing top three. Two left-handers, and the way normally Trent Boult bowled, I mean, both ways, swinging the ball, outswingers and in-swingers, and he really tests your defensive technique early on, and that will be a test for Pakistan. And obviously Pakistan been scoring at the top. Whenever we did well, openers and the number 3 slot is very important for us. All these three, when they gave us a good start, we managed to score big. They are not scoring big hundreds, but still it's good for Pakistan. If you get a start of 50 plus, then we are fine. Once the nerves are settled in the dressing room, once we are good in first 10 overs, then obviously we got the strength that we can just go on and score somewhere around 300 or 300 plus. So it will be key for Pakistan. To me, I think they need to bat through. I mean, Imam, what's been happening, he got a 50 and then he just throw it away. A short ball down leg side. Maybe it's the case of just thinking about the strike rates, and you just go hard so early, and then you just lose wickets. From other side, Fakhar, I always say that, okay, once you just start well, you already at 30, 40 or 50 on the scoreboard. He needs to bat like he usually bats. I mean, once he's bogged down and he's just trying to be like other batsmen, trying to work it around, he might be in trouble because he lacks that defensive technique. Once he's settled, he just needs to go normally what he knows how to go after the bowlers, and that will be the key for Pakistan. But at the same time, the starts are very, very important. If we can just see through the first 10 overs without losing a wicket or maybe losing one wicket, I think we're a very good chance. And then Babar, obviously a key. Babar and Haris will be. Haris, the way he batted in the last game, I think he's the one who knows how to score big hundreds. And also Babar Azam. Babar Azam is also just at the moment what's been happening, he just goes 60, 70, and then what I believe that suddenly he just wants to catch up with a run strike rate, and suddenly he just throws it away. I mean, he's the kind of batsman who bats up to 40, 45 overs, we are in the game, we are winning the game. So Pakistan, I think, needs to understand that, especially against New Zealand, because their fast bowlers are bowling very well, so top 3 are very important. One of them needs to get something around 100 or 100 plus score if we want to win this game, and that is going to be very, very crucial in this game.
Yeah, Misbah is absolutely spot on. When the openers have performed, it's just been a completely different equation for Pakistan, and that's almost something you can say about a lot of teams. You can certainly say it about India too, but the impact of Imam and Fakhar in particular, it's not just the top 3, it's these two. In matches 1, they average 89, and if they get the runs together, then you could see that the 50 and 100 run partnerships usually translate into a victory for Pakistan. In a few minutes, that inspection will be coming. This is where we leave viewers on ESPN Cricinfo. Viewers in the Caribbean, stay right with us. We'll be back with a bit more on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019.